Depending on the organization, depending on your real estate footprint, have some targets to be able to meet and make that non-negotiable. Technology has evolved 5 years faster than we expected it to be. It's not about technical communication anymore. It's about value proposition. When it comes to hybrid working in particular, I think that trend that can be applied to is technology.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Heroes of Hybrid Work. On today's pod, I'm very excited to welcome Christa Dodoo, Chief of Facilities and Infrastructure at United Nations World Food Program. From ABSA Bank to Stanbic Bank to the International Monetary Fund to the World Food Program, Christa has worked in the facilities management and built environment industry for the past 20 years with extensive experience in both operational and strategic roles. Christa also serves as a board member and on the first vice chair executive committee for IFMA, or the International Facilities Management Association. I think I got that all in there. Christa was recently named Esqueda's top 20 facilities leaders shaping hybrid work in 2024. And that's why Christa joins us as a hero of hybrid work today. Christa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So clearly you have an impressive career and are deeply passionate about facilities management. How did your career path lead you here?
Well, I always say to people I'm an intentional facilities manager because most of the people we have in the profession and in the industry are people that stumble into the role because facilities management is still kind of a new profession. It's evolved over time, it's changed over the years. So we have people who are architects, construction engineers, various built environment professionals who transition into facilities manager later on in their career. I knew I wanted to be a facilities manager since I was a teenager. I knew this was the profession I wanted to be in. I was lucky to have people in my life, mentors in my life who were in the built environment industry. So I grew up in that environment and I've always been fascinated by buildings. I like the way buildings run. I like the way buildings operate behind the scenes buildings. But I did not want to be a contractor. I didn't want to do construction. I didn't want to be a designer. So I knew architecture was out of the way for me. So the only thing left is to be in operations and maintenance. And that was it. It was pretty much an easy decision for me to make. And that's how I got into facilities management. And no regrets, never look back.
I love that. I love that. That's a great segue. You say it's, I read on LinkedIn somewhere that you said it's not about the buildings that we manage anymore, but what we do beyond that, which is a great segue because now I know that you love the building itself. So how can we give people the tools today and the guidelines they need to feel comfortable and safe working anywhere since we are focused on hybrid work today?
And you're right. It's not about the building anymore. It's the workspace. The workspace has evolved from a workplace, to a workspace. So people work anywhere that they feel comfortable, anywhere that they believe they can be productive or get the work done. So just standing by the roadside with our mobile phones, people are working. We are on the call. We are on the go 24/7. I'm not saying it as is right. I'm not advocating for us working nonstop. We need to have work-life balance, but that's the reality that we have all the tools and technology easily accessible to us that we can work anywhere. So whilst appreciating that fact, we need to also ensure that we educate people to know at any point in time when you are working, what are the tools and resources that you need to be able to guide us? What guidelines do you have to think about that goes beyond the physical environment that the organization operates in to where you feel comfortable with being able to take those policies and processes to adapt it to whatever situation you find yourself. I think that is really critical. And the main thing that comes to mind, the people, And when it comes to the people, we're talking about safety, we're talking about occupational health and safety, we're talking about economics, we're talking about well-being, and all those are the components that can easily be transferred from the physical space to wherever third place that you find yourself. And so I think those are the low hanging fruits that we can develop tools and guidelines for people to be able to adapt it to their workspace.
What are you doing today? Do you have an example of adapting to the white space? Are there certain tools and protocols that have worked for you?
One of the things we did easily, which we think people can apply to, is ergonomics guidelines. How do you ensure that your home office is ergonomic? Because at work, we have a team that takes care of that. We have economic consultants, we have the wellness division, we have the occupational safety and health team that ensures that that is done effectively. The furniture that we procure, we take all that into consideration, but we can do that for you at home. So having those guidelines, which are simple, it doesn't need to be that complicated, that people can take and say, this is how to set up a home office. That is one. When it comes to safety in the workspace, how do I ensure that I don't have trip hazards at home? How do I ensure that our safety policy that we have at work, how can you adapt it to your home office?
Mhm.
Making sure that in between work, when you have that 5 minute break, checking on your laundry, you have taken safety into consideration. You are not forgetting the fact that you are still working. And we are not talking about productivity or performance. We think most managers have taken that into consideration and covered it. But we are talking about you as a person and be responsible and accountable for your safety. So I think that is one of the changes that we've tried to implement and letting people know that when it comes to working outside of the physical environment where the office operates in, you are responsible and accountable to how you take care of your safety at home and wherever third place that you find yourself. So those are some of the education and awareness that we are creating.
Yeah, it makes me think. So has the role of a facilities leader evolved to, I guess, take the person into consideration much more today than before hybrid work, where maybe before you're more focused on the buildings? I mean, what do you think?
I think we always used to do that because when you look at facilities management, the definition of facilities management, the IFMA definition, the ISO standard definition, it looks at integration of people, place, and process. So the people component is always there because you can't look at the place forgetting about the people who are going to use this space.
Mhm.
You can't forget about the processes that you put in place to run the space if you don't take the people into consideration. So we've always done that. But right now, the people component is becoming a priority. We are liaising and collaborating more with HR teams.
Yeah,
That used to be a conversation solely for HR. And that's why when it comes to hybrid working in some organization, that decision and policy is left mainly for the HR teams to develop and implement. And the
hmm,
facility managers, yes, we are thinking more of the people when it comes to wellness, when it comes to well-being, when it comes to change management, you know, adapting to coming back to the space. It's not just about I used to work remotely for 2 years. This is how I operate. I come into the office and it's just sitting behind a desk and working. But transitioning people and helping support them with the necessary tools and resources to adapt to that change and transition,
hmm,
we are getting more involved in now. We are listening more to what people want and what people need. That we didn't used to do that too much in the past. It didn't used to be a priority for us. We used to think about um, the parts that connect to the building only. We
yeah,
used to be about safety. We used to be about indoor air quality. Are the HVAC system working well?
sure.
Those are the things we used to think about as facilities management when it comes to people. But now we've evolved beyond that and we are thinking more about, do I feel safe? Do I feel the building is healthy enough when I come in there? Is my mental health being considered and being accounted for when I come into a space. So yes, we have evolved over time when it comes to people. It's more of a
Yeah.
priority now. And that coordination with HR teams have become really effective in the past few years.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's excellent. I had a hunch about this, so I'm glad you said that. So, with the evolution of the role, what kind of skills would you say these maybe new facilities leaders coming into the workforce might need, given this shift towards employee wellness and employee experience?
I wouldn't say new skill sets, Jenny. I would say reprioritizing skill sets that
Okay.
we used to, push to the back burner. Change management is one.
Okay.
That stakeholder engagement, which we used to do because we manage projects, and that component is always part of project management. When we're looking at facility projects, there's always a change management and stakeholder management. That was part of it. But the way we manage those skills has evolved over time. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the people components that has to come to the fore. So those are the skill sets, some of the two skill sets I think we need to prioritize. We also need to prioritize, as I mentioned, well-being and wellness. Some of those HR soft skills that we used to relegate to the background, or we just used to shift to our HR teams or office administrators, depending on the organizational setup. We need to know those, and we need to develop those skill sets as well. When it comes to sustainability, it's not just about a unit within an organization anymore. Every facility manager needs to be sustainable. And I'm not talking about just environmental sustainability. I'm talking about sustainability in every aspect of the word, and how to ensure our processes that we put in place are sustainable over a long period of time. How does that impact the environment long term? Circular economy, um, what does that mean for the building and the spaces that we manage? I think those are some of the things that we need to develop going forward. Being able to sell yourself, being able to sell your skill sets, that communication to the C-suite, that communication to your stakeholders, to your clients, I think that is also one thing that is really critical for us. It's not about technical communication anymore. It's about value proposition. People need to understand that as a facility manager, what do you bring to the table? We have a seat at the table now. What do we do with it? you
Yeah.
know, and the best way to take advantage of that is to be able to communicate effectively and sell yourself and market yourself. It's all about a brand now, and we need to be able to market what we are doing effectively so that we are giving the necessary recognition in the workplace.
That's excellent. I love that. It's elevating the role. It's having a seat at the table. It's not being invisible anymore, but actually, right, coming out in front and saying what you should do in a hybrid work setting, right, to keep people safe and engaged. Speaking of the way that spaces are changing a bit, how do you think moving to hybrid work has changed office design? And are there any specific examples you can think of?
One of the things we did is to have a set percentage of collaboration spaces. So we put in a target of 30% of our workspace should not be just a desk and meeting rooms, but it should be collaboration spaces. So we have various space types. We have individual focus booths, which varies. Could be very formal focus booth that you could just go in there and just concentrate on the work you need to do. It could be a place that you just have one sofa to sit down and relax, or a couple of sofas that you want to have a laptop on your lap and just, kick back and get your work done. We've put that variety of space in the places that people could say I have this in my living room, and work in that environment. We have a lot of informal meeting rooms as well. All our meeting rooms are not just a big oval desk in the middle of the room, chairs around it. We have sofas, we have lounges, we have high desks and chairs. So it's that variety of space type, so that depending on your activity, depending on your mood and the kind of people that you are meeting with, there is a space for everyone. And we've been intentional about that. Our building is structured architecturally in a way that is four towers interconnected. And it's kind of a really cool infrastructure. And we have been intentional in that for every floor and every tower, that 30% collaboration space requirement is met.
Hmm.
So people don't have to feel the need to walk into one corner of the building to be able to do that. It's kind of interspersed within the working environments so you can move swiftly and seamlessly from a working desk, a standing desk, to a lounge,
Yeah.
to a boot and all that. So that's some of the things that we've done easily, and people like it. Of course, it comes with its challenges because having those different space type in the same environment, you have the usual noises, people not
Right.
respecting that space as it should. But we have guidelines that help mitigate some of those risks. But I think doing that alone is making people feel more comfortable coming into the space. And I think that is one of the easy things that you can do as an organization to, make it easier for people to really
Yeah.
collaborate when they come into the office environment.
You know what's so interesting is you have been talking a lot about employee well-being and how you intentionally are actually putting things into the workplace that they have at home. So comforting spaces that they're used to at home that would maybe make them feel comfortable at work or drive them to work. It's we haven't actually heard that yet because we normally hear about like, let's make the workplace collaborative. Let's make sure we're always talking. Let's make sure we're always engaging. So I think it's a really important balance to hit to actually have some of the comforts you have at home at work, right? And then some of the comforts that you have at work at home, right? And that's what you were talking about at the beginning of our conversation with making sure you're safe at home, just like you're safe at work. So I think that's actually a really unique perspective that you brought to this.
And it makes it easier, Jenny, if the office space is not so different from your home environment, those guidelines are easy to transition. I'm not coming into an office that looks significantly different from where I work at home. Then that education and that awareness is difficult for people to really implement. So that fusion of the third spaces, the home environment, and the office, I think that also helps people to not feel that difference when they move from one space to the other. And I think that will be one of the easy ways for organization to, look at it.
So, what are your best practices for setting up this ideal hybrid environment that we've been talking about? Do you have, a couple things that really stick out to you that you think are kind of non-negotiable?
First, listening to what the people want, and we can't give them everything they want. When we were reimagining the office design in our office, what we did is to engage with the people a lot. Find out what they want, find out what makes sense for them, because everyone works differently. Every function, every department works differently. So understanding what they want and how to provide those functional spaces for them, I think that was significant. We couldn't provide everything they want. People had really amazing ideas, which we cannot afford.
Sure.
People also have some really outlandish ideas, which is just not feasible, but finding that balance, I think that is really key. You don't know it all. Yes, we are the managers of the space. We develop the strategies, but we don't have all the answers. So that engagement triggered some ideas. We may not give you exactly a pool table in the middle of your office because that's what you think is a good idea, but we can provide something that will help you break away from your work, break down monotony in the work during the day. So those are some of the things that I think we need to think about and having that set target. So for instance, I mentioned we have a 30% target, for collaboration spaces in the building. Depending on the organization, depending on your real estate footprint, have some targets to be able to meet and make that non-negotiable.
Okay.
When departments and teams grow, and we use a flexible working environment or desking, so we do not have assigned seating for anyone apart from the directors. Everyone do not have assigned seating. So when a department or a division grows beyond the initial headcount, all we tell them is figure it out and use the available workspaces. Change the way you work and manage with the space. We don't, you know, go into the habit of just changing meeting rooms back into offices or moving
Yeah.
spaces away just to put desk in there. We need to keep that 30%. So find out for your organization, for the people that you are supporting, what is one thing that they really need, develop a target around that and make that non-negotiable. And I think when you're able to do that, they would appreciate the fact that you listen to them in the beginning, not just for the project, by some ongoing support that you provide to them, even when the needs of the organization changes.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think what you were talking about consistency, right? It's actually something that comes to mind is the less change sometimes is best. So, people know what they're coming to work and they know what they're going to see. And I think if you're shifting the spaces all the time, like you just said, I think that could actually be not a great experience for people. You said you have hot desking, right? So I assume they're booking their desk before they get there. They know they
Yeah.
have a space for themselves before they walk in. I would say if they didn't have that, that might also be a little bit jarring.
Well, largely they do. We have a booking system they use, but also we have accounted for the fact that we have a huge portfolio around the world. We have colleagues outside of HQ that come in on short notice.
Okay.
Those people should be able to come in and have a space to use without booking a desk. So we have that, flexibility as well. Or maybe you just forget to book because you're just coming from the airport, you're coming from a mission travel. Instead of going home, you want to stop at the office to do a few hours of work. You should be able to do that. So we've accounted for that group of people who can come in anytime. We have
Okay.
member states and representatives that come in during our board meetings and conferences, and they want to be able to use the space. They don't have access to our booking tool, but they should be able to have access to a place to sit and work. And they
Hmm.
are able to do that. And all that come under the corporate spaces that we're talking about. And that is why we made that a non-negotiable, you know,
Hmm.
metric for us, because then we are still catering for those people who can come in at any point in time.
Yeah, no, and I love how intentional you are about the policy because basically that's what I've learned after interviewing so many brilliant people like yourself is you can't just set it and forget it, right? The hybrid work rules, they need to be intentional, they need to be revisited, and they need to be constantly communicated, as you said, not just to the employees but to the C level. So that's excellent. So, what's your biggest lesson learned as a facilities manager?
When it comes to hybrid working, I'll say listen to the people, but be prepared that people change their mind all the time. And what do you do with that? That is up to you. People will change their mind. People needs change. Their circumstances change all the time. So what they expect in the office and in the workspace keeps evolving. How do you keep up with that change? How do you keep up with that evolution of their needs and their requirements and not finding yourself in this constant pendulum and going back and forth with them? I think that is I'll say one of the biggest lessons learned in the past few years when it comes to hybrid working. Just ensuring that you have that points that you see as your center, and stick with so that even when you swing back and forth, you still have a place that you settle in
Hmm.
and it goes back to the non-negotiable space, non-negotiable components for you. But move with the flow. Go with people, go with their change, go with their needs, go with their requirements. See how you can adapt. See how you can incorporate that in your policies, in your guidelines, but still have that center,
Hmm.
and people would appreciate and recognize that. I think aligning their evolving needs to their center, letting them be aware that there is room for that evolution, I think is critical, but still not allowing them to move you along constantly. That will be appreciated.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. There's a lot of leadership principles, I think, that you're talking about here, which is wonderful for facilities folks to hear. Let's round this out. What future trends do you see in facilities management with hybrid work becoming more common? Anything that you see that's more prevalent happening now that we should be ready for?
When it comes to hybrid working in particular, I think that trend that can be applied to is technology. How are we using technology to be able to manage the spaces? As we said earlier, the workspace has evolved over time. The only way we'll be able to provide that support and resources for everyone, regardless of where they are located, is the use of technology. So incorporating that technology in whatever we do, we've talked about booking system. That is technology, managing the space with a booking system, managing the facility services you have in the building when it comes to maybe a cup of coffee, cafeteria services, and catering services, meeting rooms, and all that. Using sensors to track your utilization to be able to ensure that your facility maintenance processes are being managed, really well. Use that technology to be able to, provide the necessary services that your client and stakeholders need. I think that is going to be the one thing that is not going to go anywhere. Technology is here. One of another paper that we developed and IFMA developed about digital transformation last year, the research findings show that in the wake of the pandemic, technology has evolved 5 years faster
Oh,
than we expected it to be.
I believe it.
Everyone just got up one day. We were all thrown into this instant business continuity plan, and we didn't know what to do with it. The only way we survived that was technology.
All right. Well, we're wrapping up. So, anything that we missed, Krista, you probably came to this podcast wanting to say something. Maybe I didn't ask you the right question to get it out of you. Is there anything you want to leave us with in summary?
I think we pretty much covered it all. The main thing I want to leave our audience with is be intentional in how you manage the space. Be intentional in how you listen to your stakeholder needs and how you implement those needs. It will evolve, yes, and we need to evolve, we need to adapt. But in that evolution, in that adaptability and flexibility, let's be intentional in what we do. Let's not forget that people have needs, people's needs have evolved over time, and neurodiversity, inclusion, and all that now is a very wide spectrum that we were not aware of in the past and we need to be aware of now. Let's create really intentional, inclusive, and diverse space for people because that's the only way that true hybrid workspaces will be useful.
I I couldn't agree more. So well said, and thank you so much. It's been a huge pleasure talking to you and getting to know you today, Krista. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for having me. It's been a pleasure.